very much to the ladies coming to join us tonight. There's a mate of mine, Pete Bellion. He joined Victoria Police in 1986, which was a year after I did. And, you know, we worked with each other a number of years, but after, 33 years of kicking around, I could just put in a phone call to this bloke, and he's put himself out with all the business that he attends to still, to come down and give us a bit of a presentation. I just asked that you give him 100% because it's worth it, and you should leave here with something tonight. So, Pete Bellion.
All right, thanks, Pete. Guys, thanks Trev for the invite to come down. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I did in the job. Just a little bit about my background. So I went to De La Salle College in Melbourne, played Amco Herald Shield for D-Lar against Assumption at Waverley Park. The night that St Kilda played Richmond in the fog and you couldn't see 10 feet in front of you and do a kick it over. We got the pump by Assumption that night, but that's all right. Then I went and did a civil engineering degree at Monash at Caulfield. And then straight after that I joined the police force. And I went into the police force with the view of using my engineering qualifications to make a difference in terms of road trauma reduction on our roads. So early on in the career I did a couple of years general duties, started out at Cheltenham. I think they were around about the time that probably first came across Trevor. Trevor was, his old man was at Carnegie. Yeah. And then we bumped heads at Caulfield Trafic Operations Group in 1990, or late 89. 1st of July 1990 I went to the accident investigation section. My very first day at the accident investigation section I went to 2 fatalities. I can still remember them clearly. There was a disqualified driver that he was doing the right thing, he was riding his push bike, but he didn't have a helmet on, he was riding in the dark, and he was riding on the Princess Freeway out Pakenham Way. Not a good move in the dark, got rear-ended by a car, dead as a chop. Alright, so we had to go there, photograph, measure, all that stuff, pick up the bodies onto the Undertaker's tray off the coroner's court, do all the reports, statements and investigations, the whole lot. So that was the morning of that day. At about midday that day, second fatality for the shift. I was a truck and a car at an intersection in town. Car's gone through a red light, being cleaned up by the truck. Driver of the car obviously come off second best in that situation because the truck's going to win. The truck's heavier, got more momentum. Car no good. All right, so first shift, two fatalities. I was in the unit basically retired in 2016 after 30 years service. Retired a bit earlier due to ill health, basically from a thing you might have heard of, a thing called PTSD or post-traumatic stress injury or post-traumatic stress disorder. It's a condition that hits 30% of your first responders, your police, your ambulance, your fire brigade, your SES, your CFA, and also hits 30% of the military. Alright, it's a pretty serious condition. Long-term effects of that condition are things like Alzheimer's, bowel cancer, and cardiovascular disease. So any time you come across a veteran or a first responder or a military person, thank them for their service because they've done a lot for the communities they work in. I'll give you an example of what can happen with that condition. I've got a mate of mine, he was a sergeant in the army, went to Afghanistan. They lost 2 in his platoon, killed in action over there. They've lost 8 of that platoon out of a total of 20 to suicide from post-traumatic stress disorder, coming back, not being able to deal with or manage that condition moving on. All right? I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But what you've got to remember, and what I'm going to get into, is some of the road safety aspects of driving your car and being responsible on the roads. But you've got to remember that every time the police, the fire and ambulance go these things, you're dealing with traumatic events, and that's causing the amygdala in their brain to fire up, dumping heaps of adrenaline and cortisol into their body to allow them to respond to events that human beings are not designed to go to. Right, so they do a hell of a job. So if anybody has a crash, you've got to remember what happens to those first responders. All right, there's a massive ripple effect. It's not only the party that's killed or injured in the car crash, But what happens to the parents of the kid or child that's killed? It's what happens to the spouse, what happens to friends and relatives as a result of that death on the roads. So these are some of the things we've got to think about. One of my main roles in the unit was also as the technical advisor to the Transport Accident Commission for all their road safety adverts for a period of 30 years. And you might recognise some of them later on. Have a look at those figures up there. This is just in Victoria alone. Every 22 minutes, so probably in the time that I'm going to talk tonight, there'll be probably 2 people injured out on our roads. Every 4 days, somebody becomes severely brain damaged, all right? Acquired brain injury. Anybody know anybody that's happened to in the room? Yep. All right, so it's a long-term condition, causes a lot of problems. Every 8 days, somebody becomes a paraplegic or quadriplegic. Does anybody know that that's happened to? Oh, there's a few on the road, so and nearly every day out on the road, somebody dies. So that's just on Victoria Road. Seen that flying around in the skies? Generally, when you saw that flying around, when I was working, I would get a call. They'd be going to, more often than not, they're going to do a road accident pickup. All right, once that's called life-threatening injury or fatality, people from our unit will be getting a call. All right, once from the time you get that call, it's go, go, go. You're on the uniform. It could have been 2 o'clock in the morning when you're sound asleep when that call's come through. All of a sudden you're going from 0 to hero. Right, everything's kicking in. The adrenaline's kicking in, the cortisol's kicking in, the uniform's on, you're into the car, there's lights and sirens to the scene, measure up the scene, deal with all the blood and the guts, the photos and all that sort of stuff. And then you've got to come home and wind down from that and shut off. Right, that was just about every day of the year. Right. If I hear that at night now, it still causes that reaction in my body because I did it for so long. So I've got to learn to manage what is post-traumatic stress disorder from the job that I did because of that reaction that you would get at the time you're under those jobs. And a lot of your first responders and the military, what do they do to take the edge off that hyper alertness or hypervigilance? I'll get into the grog or get into recreational drugs. No go. To try and take the edge off that hypervigilance. Because then what happens, you can, in that condition, it's like riding a wave. You can be up here operating at a very high level, and then you can drop down to post-job where you were tired, you might have been a bit emotional as a result of what you saw, and if somebody's had alcohol or drugs, depressive drugs, that can cause a depressive spiral, and then that then leads to your first responders or your military guys potentially taking their own lives. It's shocking. For every one we lose on duty, whether it be police, fire or ambos, or military, it's a ratio of about 4, 5 to 1 that we lose because they can't handle that condition coming back. This was some of the gear I used to carry around in the car for photographing and measuring all the crash zones. Didn't leave much around to carry my golf clubs around. Over the time, some of the technology that's come in to improve road safety. Top left corner, electronic stability control. So when if you've come into a corner, put too much steering in and the back end of the car starts to step out, that system will actually detect that the car's going into a bit of a yaw. It'll back off the throttle, apply selective braking to an individual wheel and help you to regain control of the car. Most new cars have got that in there. Your speed cameras, let's see, we'll get some graphs as a result of that. We've got airbags now inside the car, front, side, thorax. Right, your ability to come out of a crash with a better situation is a lot better off with those airbag systems than what we were. With the frontal airbags, back in the old days, the old mid-70s Holdens, Fords, Falcons, whatever. Now, if you had a solid wall like a brick wall here and a car went into it at 60 k's, into that solid brick wall, without those systems, seatbelt airbags, you'd be gone. Right? Now, with the more modern cars, 5-star rated NCAP cars with airbag systems, seatbelt pre-tensioners, energy absorbing steering wheels, all that sort of stuff, you can survive about an 80k sudden stop. If you're doing 100k out on the open road and there's a broken white line between you and the oncoming car, and you're distracted because you're on your bloody phone looking down, and you're across the centre line into the oncoming traffic and you're doing 100 and they're doing 100, I'll tell you what, you're all out of there. Doesn't matter what you're in. That's why there's been a push, a lot of country undivided roads, to reduce speed limits on those roads from 100 down to 80 because of that situation. We've got the phone up there. We've got the DVD player screen up on the back of the headrest. That's an offence under the road rules because that's visible to another driver driving along and can cause a distraction. There's a road rule offence to do with that. So same thing with your satellite navigation. You're not allowed to touch a phone or a satellite navigation system at all while you're driving. All right. The only way that you can talk on a phone is if it's connected through the system on the car and you press a button on the steering wheel and that's it. But even when in that situation, your risk in terms of driving is the same as a blood alcohol concentration of about 0.04. All right? But if you're looking down or touching something in the car, from a road design point of view, in designing roads, we only allow 2.5 seconds for your perception and reaction time. Right? Perception is first seeing something and then identifying what it is. Reaction is then the time it takes you to get onto the brakes or to steer, right? Whatever you're going to do to get out of the crash. But if you're looking away from the road in front of you or scanning what's going on left and right, for any more than that time, I'll tell you what, it's worse than drink driving, and you get very, very high level of crash. Most of the crashes towards the end of my career were distracted drivers or ice addicts. Okay? Going back prior to that, you still got excessive speed was a huge factor, at least 30% of the road toll. Drink driving, 30% of the road toll. Inattention, all right, lack of concentration, driving in the afternoon, just after lunch, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Our natural body's circadian rhythms suggest that we should have a rest at that time of the day. Overseas, they have siestas after lunch. There's a good reason to it, because your natural body's circadian rhythms put you in a state of fatigue. And probably one of the classic examples of that situation, I'll just go down to it. Was Kerrang in June of 2007. This crash occurred at 1:30 in the afternoon. Nice daylight conditions, good visibility. Truck driver approaches this railway crossing. He's doing 100 kilometres an hour. He's come through the crossing before. Never seen a train there before. Right, so he's complacent because of that. Right, you know what complacency is? Just going along there thinking nothing's going to happen. Alright, so it's 1:30 in the afternoon, he's 3 hours into a trip driving. What are we told as a driver? 2 hours, what do? Pull over and have a break. Alright, 2 hours, that's it. Stop and have a break. 3 hours into the trip, he doesn't see the lights and bells going at a railway crossing. They're going for 24.5 seconds. He was 700 metres back from the crossing when they came on. How do we know that that was the time that those signals were going for? Well, there's a signal control box there that tells you all that information when you go there and do your investigation afterwards. And there's a circuit breaker in the track that the train crosses that triggers that timing off. And that crossing up there, the train was something like about 600 metres back, doing 90 kilometres per hour when that was triggered off. He doesn't look to the left on approach to the crossing, all right? Any sort of incident you come up to, you should be looking left and right, straight ahead, scanning your environment, not just tunnel vision, using your peripheral vision all the time. Saw the train, but way too late. Hit the skids about 50 metres beforehand and ploughed into the side of the train at about 60 kilometres per hour. 11 people lost their lives in that crash, all passengers on the train. Right? That's how quickly something can happen out on the road environment. 11 people lost their lives just like that. This patch of red shit on my leg there, right, it's called psoriasis, and that's from cortisol being released in your body and adrenaline when you're responding to something like that. So that patch there, when you're getting too much of that, that's part of the post-traumatic stress injury from going to that incident. So that patch on my leg, that came out within 2 days after that, and I went, what the hell's this? You know, I go to the doctor and they said, oh, that's psoriasis. I said, what's that from? And they said, it's produced from cortisol. Cortisol's released from the thing in your brain called the amygdala, and your body's fear-flight kicks in when you go into a traumatic event. What do you do for a job? I said, I'm a police officer. Rightio, what area? I said, major collision investigation unit. Have you been to a crash lately? Yeah. Went to one the other day, 11 people were killed. Right, but at that point in time, that was 11 on top of probably about another 1,000 prior to that. So my career, in total, I went to 2,000 road fatalities, 20 police deaths. 17 of those police deaths were car crashes. The other 3 were where they were shot and killed and there were cars involved. So when Tony Clark pulled over a car out on the Warburton Highway back on the 24th of April 2005, mentally disturbed bloke in the car that he pulled over, gun grapple occurred, the mentally disturbed person out of the car got Tony's gun off him, shot and killed him with his own police service revolver. The guy then went up the road and took his own life. Right, so we went out there, did the crime scene survey. I'm back in the office, so that was on the Sunday. Back in the office on the Tuesday morning, working on the plan for that job. And I get called to another crash up at Benalla on the Hume Freeway, another police member. In that instance, Rennie Page, Senior Connie from Benalla Highway Patrol, they'd stopped the car for speeding, so they're in the emergency lane, and he's got out of the police car, gone to the driver of the other car with the radar, showed him the speeding, 121 k's for the speed they'd been detected at, got their reason for it, gone back to the police car, written out a ticket, gone back to the car, given the ticket to the driver, and then he's walking back to the police car, still in the emergency lane, and a guy that was a store manager for a couple of stores, supermarket chains up in Wangaratta and Wodonga. He'd left Melbourne at 6:30 in the morning. So he's 2 hours into his trip in the morning and he's had a microsleep. Right? Does anybody know what a microsleep is?
Oh, second.
Right. So it's when you... Who's driven a car and you've had a nod? I reckon, if, to be honest, there's probably everybody in this room, otherwise you're bullshitting me. Alright? Everybody's had a nod when driving a car. But when you look into the research from it, that they've done on sleep research at the Austin Hospital, when you have that microsleep, how many seconds do you reckon your eyes are shut for? Minimum. 2. Longer. It's 10 seconds.
It's true.
10 seconds in a microsleep, your eyes are shut for. So if you're doing 100 kilometres per hour down a country road or a freeway, all right, you're travelling 27.8 metres every second. So in a microsleep for 10 seconds, you've travelled over 1/4 of a kilometre. All right? So if you're driving, what are the signs that you are starting to get tired and it's time to pull over and have a 15-minute power nap? What do you reckon they are? What's your first signs that you should be pulling over? Yawning's probably starting to get a bit late in the scheme, but it definitely is one. What happens when you're getting tired? You get a bit fidgety, you might start getting a bit stiff in the hands, you might get a bit sore in the neck. That's when it's time to actually, they're the first signs that you are fatigued and you need to have a break and have the 15-minute power nap. You don't want to go to the point where you have that microsleep because that's going to end up in disaster. Right? It happened to me. It's happened to me. I've gone across 4 lanes of traffic. coming back from a fatal at Druin one night. And I thought I was an hour back. Had one on the Westgate Freeway just before coming up the bridge. Next minute I'm on 4 lanes across. Did I shit myself? Lucky I didn't hit any of it, but that can happen very quickly. I'll just while on that one there. Remember the Burnley Tunnel? Burnley Tunnel, anybody remember that crash? 2007, 23rd of March. It was my daughter's 8th birthday, my youngest daughter. What do you reckon happened there? Anybody know? Truck crash, hit 3 cars. Truck changed lanes. Hey? Truck changed lanes. Yeah, why did he do that, you reckon? In a hurry. What happened? He was distracted. He had his mobile phone, it rang, it was the boss. His boss rang him. All right? There was another truck that had stopped in the left-hand lane because he had a tyre failure issue. Right? They're shutting down the speeds from 80 to 60, putting the red X up. How many people do you still see driving those lanes with the red X up? It's there for a bloody reason, you know. Like, it's not to go around because the cars are slowing down and they're doing the right thing to slow down, you know. Something's happening up ahead, so don't travel when there's a red X, because basically this is what this guy's doing. And then all of a sudden, oh, there's a truck there, and he has to swerve. Took out one car, kicked it to the right, but then rear-ended a couple of other cars. 3 of them were all, you know, the other 3 cars all went up in flames, all 3 victims were incinerated. Why? Distracted, for one. And then, you know, you've got the lane closure and speed reduction for a reason, because there's an incident there. Young males have lots of testosterone in their systems. All right, this is the classic here. You've got a driver that's got a 360 Ferrari Spider, very expensive car. And on this particular day, male driver, he was doing all right for himself. He had plenty of money, owned a lot of excavators. He was doing earthworks on a project. And he had a young female deliver a quad bike to him. And she goes, nice car. And he goes, do you want to go for a spin? And of course then he goes for a drive, and they get to the Maroondah Highway and the Warburton Highway. And the car that pulls up alongside is the silver FPV GTV Falcon. Lights go green and it's on. They're off. Made his own, get up to 160 Ks. Mr. Ferrari driver's tyre pressures in the back tyres are a little bit lower than what they should be. So what does that do? Causes your sidewalls to be more flexible, and in cornering you've got less stability, more likely for the car to break traction. So if we go to, well, that was the road that occurred on. What we've got marked out there with the yellow numbers is what's called some tyre scuff marks, where that Ferrari lost control at about 160 k's in the 80 k zone. So he was on the inside lane, slightly tighter turn radius. The Ford's on the outside lane, so he can go through that lane a little bit quicker than the Ferrari. But the Ferrari has lower inflation pressures, less stiffness in the sidewall, more susceptible to breakaway. That's what happened. Breakaway, lost control, car split into 2. Male driver with too much testosterone in his system, no longer here. Female passenger that delivered the quad bike, no longer here. It's as simple as that. Things happen very, very quickly out on the road environment. 18th of February 2006 up at Cardross. Anybody remember that one? Driver driving along the road. He's got his 4-year-old son on his lap, and he's got his 10-year-old daughter in the passenger seat, and he's had a few of the old amber fluid sherbets. It's a road, about 100k limit, but realistically you wouldn't drive through there at about probably 75, 80 is a more realistic safe speed. He's come through the bend leading up to losing control and taking out 6 teenagers that were standing on the side of the road after a party. And they went on the bitumen, they were off on the gravel. They're just going too hard through the corner. He's got his kid on his lap in front of him. Like, how can you control a car properly with having somebody sitting on your lap while you're driving? It's just not on. But these are some of the stupid things that people do out on the road, day in, day out. Now this one here, the guy, it was the head-on out on the multi-bypass. 3 ended up dying in this. But the white car, he's driven down the wrong side of the freeway for about 4 kilometres. How the hell do you do that? Well, you'll do that if you're affected by drugs, because you don't know what you're doing. That's what happened there. That was the policeman I was talking about at Manila. So, now on that day with Rennie's body, one of the jobs I had to do was actually take off his equipment belt, the firearm, make the firearm safe. I then had to pick his body up, put him on the stretcher, put him into the coroner's van. All right, one of your own, and that's it. Now that sort of incident there, Trevor and I would look at that situation there. We would probably, when we worked in Traffic Operations Group or Highway Patrol, you'd stop, anything from 20 to 50 cars in a shift sometimes, maybe more. Just depends on what you're doing. So that's an incident you would do so often in your shift, and then with Rennie and also with Tony the day before, there are 2 types of scenarios where, hey, this is exactly the sort of things I've done time and time again in my career, and looks what happened to these 2 colleagues of ours. So it sort of certainly gives you a few nightmares, that sort of stuff. This particular one here was the 23rd of December 04. If you have a look at the photo here, if you have a look at this tyre, basically it's had a tread separation on it, and there's been a tyre failure that's led to a loss of control, and 3 people that were in that were killed. You can see the loss of control tyre marks up on the road where the officers are standing. So why do tyres generally fail? Right, Trevor had an incident we were talking about before. Sometimes if it's a spare tyre that's been on the back of a vehicle for quite a long time and it's hasn't been used, the rubber can deteriorate and can lead to a failure. But more often than not, a tyre failure will be from travelling at high speed in warm conditions and not having the right inflation pressures in your tyres will lead to a tyre failure. So how often do you check your tyres? Every time you go and get petrol? Because you should. All right. Just a quick survey in the room. Who checked their tyres in the last week? 1 of us, 2 of us, 3. Start checking your tyre pressures regularly. Because you can look at a tyre on a modern car, it might only have 10 psi in it and still looks like it's inflated, but it's not. And if you go out on the highway travelling at high speed, you can have a tyre failure, all right, and lead to a loss of control event, something like this. Towards the end of my career, obviously, the airbag systems came in the cars, but it was very useful for us from an investigation point of view because we could actually plug into the car or plug into the sensing diagnostic module of the car, and with the software and the computers we had, you could actually get all the data from the car. So for this crash here, this data that you see there comes from that blue Holden utility. So he basically rear-ended the maroon coloured vehicle on the freeway heading to Ballarat one night. But what you can see, if you look through the data, okay, he's doing around about 66 miles per hour, 2.5 seconds prior to impact, which is about 109 kilometres per hour, so it's 110 zone. And half a second prior to impact, he's actually going slightly faster. His engine speed RPM's increased slightly, as has the force on the accelerator pedal. So he's actually slightly accelerating. He's going uphill. He hasn't even seen this other car. Have a look at the bottom line. Brake switch, circuit status. So when you put your foot on the brake, then that turns on the brake light. There's a little switch that turns your brake lights on the back of the car. Off, 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 off. So what do you reckon this guy was doing? To do that, run in the back of a car at full speed on a freeway.
On ice? Oh, fun.
On the phone. Yeah. These are some of the drugs that are found in drivers. So I talked about drink driving alcohol greater than 0.05. So 29.1% of in fatalities in road accidents. Cannabis is about 13.5%. Opiates 4.9%. The stimulants is probably a lot higher. This is some old data. This is going back to from 1990 to 2000. So it's things like amphetamines, methamphetamines now would be a lot higher than that. You know, a lot of there was one right at the end of my career I went to at the intersection of Dandenong Road or Princess Highway and Warrigal Road, where a guy from Brazil, heaps of ice in his system, and he's basically doing 120 in the 80k zone and punched the red light. And there was a couple they were crossing the road walking. The husband was slightly in front, wife behind. Car hit